So thanks for coming, and we will try to focus more in the business side and some of the product definition and the use cases. So I think that the first question is, in your opinion, for the big data technology, for the NoSQL databases, for what is the most important use case, or the one that the customers are asking more for, or is getting more value? They are getting more value from it.
Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So the first thing that comes to my mind is the ability to read customers' thoughts in terms of the voice of customer data, the survey, the social, and others. And it's more and more important now, because it's easy for people to just go online and post something that might get shared and reshared and tweeted until it damages your company in a huge way. So the ability to look at that data, make sense of it, and as quickly as possible to be able to react to that is key. And that's something that I think is pretty important. Yes, there are other use cases which you would know a lot about, but this is something that's closer to home, because at the end of the day, we need to know what goes on in customers' mind to be able to get ahead of the problem.
So customer-centric is one of the use cases. Okay. Any other?
Well, I guess I would just share. I'm speaking this afternoon, so I don't want to steal my own thunder. I do that a lot. But Twitter is a data provider in many ways, and I will talk a little bit about that. So I won't talk as much about the infrastructure, which is hugely important. When I talk to brands about that idea of customer centricity, how do they know what's going on in the world and how it informs their product development strategy, how they deal with customers, I'm amazed that they're using data in different ways. Everybody sits on huge amounts of data, point of sales data. There's many external data sources, Twitter, weather, Facebook, you name it. The challenge, they come back to me and say, well, actually, we've got these different data sets, but we really can't bring them together in a way that our smart people, our data scientists, our business analysts can query and slice and dice and do regression analysis and understand correlation, causality. That is ultimately, I think, the promise of big data, is that you can make some sense of it and it drives decision making. So the original question, I think we're still in a phase where data is kind of sitting all over the shop, and some of the great work these guys are doing to bring that together and make it accessible is an important first stage in this evolution.
Yeah, and I would just echo what these two gentlemen just said, and obviously Stratio and Paradigma would know as well, because they're in the trenches with the customers that are developing these applications. But there's a trend going on around modernization, okay? If you are a bank, for example, you have hundreds, if not thousands, of apps that need to be modernized from both just a cost perspective as well as becoming agile. So modernizing those applications to help the bank make money and save money is a common trend, and big data is an answer for those banks. It's a challenge. It's not easy. It's part of digital transformation. But companies like ours are, and obviously Ram from Visa, know that if we can give the developers a path to get there, it will just help those CIOs for the banks. But it's a common problem. A lot of the big software companies are forcing this to happen because there's some bad sales tactics that they're using with the banks. And it's great for opportunities for Mongo and other software companies to help those developers modernize their applications.
Okay. Okay, then the next question is a consequence. Do you think that the companies have the skills and the people to use the technology, or to fulfill, or to get the value from these use cases? Or still they are lagging behind?
I think from the data science perspective, there's a huge lack of resources there. If I could go back again, I'd probably go more into data science. So I'm based in London, and that is the hot thing right now. People who understand statistics but also DevOps, so kind of in the middle of those two worlds, can query infrastructure and databases and get information out, and then understand issues around normalization and things like that. So I think data science is huge, an area that is really lacking and will hold back the industry and brands especially.
It's always a Tom and Jerry game out there between the talent and how much you can afford and how much you need. Data science is a complicated and loosely used word. And a perfect data scientist would have a combination of math, coding, business, and storytelling. And it's very difficult to find all of them in one person, or to create a team with all of these blending together and working together. But there is an inherent understanding now in the industry that all these are needed together for them to be able to make a good contribution, a positive contribution. And many schools are training people, and many analysts, the traditional analysts, are getting trained to move more into this optimal role, or with different skill sets that can help them not only get their own data, be able to apply statistical methodology or an algorithm, and present it in a way that it makes sense for the stakeholder.
Yeah, I would add to that first, the beauty of open source software is any developer can download it and try it, okay? And no harm lost if you try it. But if you decide to invest and really go all in on a project, it's important to learn from the lessons from industry leaders like these two gentlemen and other banks and other software companies, to not repeat mistakes from the past. Because in big data, it's easy to develop something but not really get an ROI. So it's important to learn the best practices and trusted advisors. I come from the partner world, so I always believe in having a partner to work with you. So open source is a great avenue, obviously, to try it, but then learn from the best practices of other leaders to make sure that you do get an ROI from these projects.
Yeah, in fact, this was the next question, the open source versus closed products in the market, the open innovation, the partnership. How, well, Twitter, of course, is using open source technology, and it is not only using it, it is opening some of the solutions, products, technologies that they are developing internally, so it is a clear case, no? But Visa and the big companies, are you seeing a transaction to open source products versus closed products? How to do it? To go to open source in the way of Apache Foundation open source and then do it yourself, or to go with a partner to an enterprise version and have the support to use it and to have it in production? What is your opinion about this? Your recommendation to all the people? Because I think that, especially here, most of the people is open source by heart, but the doubts is in my company. I am a tier 1 bank, a tier 1 telecom company, and okay, I will go for open source, but who is going to give me the support if something's happening, or the enterprise security I need, and all this stuff?
You first.
So unfortunately, Visa being Visa and its confidentiality policies, I cannot comment about exactly what tools and technologies are being used and how, but across the industry, there is an understanding now, or an acceptance of the fact that open source is not a choice anymore. It is definite need. It's a mandatory requirement now. And I actually am borrowing your slide, where at the end you said open source has the capability of providing flexibility at a better return on investment and the elasticity, for want of a better word. Open source is must have now, and like you said, with the things changing the way they are, coding is going to be more of a need than something that you can say that I don't like. It's going to become more and more important, and we will become more and more program intensive, and we will download the open source softwares, play with it, and instead of stopping at the stage of creating a presentation or running an A/B test, we might actually go ahead and create some product out of that. And open source provides that flexibility, but there are always going to be questions around security, around enterprise management issues, the IT ops, the DevOps, the policies, and so much more. But yes, standards are evolving, and many industries, even banks, I think, are going big on open source anyway, because everyone needs it.
Yeah, I would add to that, I think you just nailed it, that open source allows for adoption, it allows for innovation, it allows for the developers to have the power in a software or enterprise company. But the world has not changed. The world is still a scary place. Security is very important when it comes to data. We've all seen what's happened, things like the Snowdens and the WikiLeaks and the elections and things on the iCloud. I mean, security is still just as important as this year as it always was. So having the combination of open source for innovation and adoption, but still having security and enterprise features, that's where it's incumbent on a company like Mongo to have the balance. Give you the ability to download our software, use it, innovate, but then give you the ability, if you want, to buy our enterprise version so you get the additional security, support, and features so that your data is always protected. I think that is the balance that software companies, I know, have to lay out there. But almost all software companies I've seen today are looking at open source, and companies that are becoming the next Mongos are looking at open source. They're looking at cloud, SaaS, subscription models. Obviously, the investors look for certain characteristics. So it's important to have that combination of an open source model with the ability to have enterprise for especially things like security.
Okay.
What would I add? Well, if I think about some of the organizations I work with in the ecosystem that use raw Twitter data to do innovative things, those are two people and a dog in a garage up to the sales forces of the world and everything in between. But a lot of the innovation happens in that startup space. And if you're in Europe and you're tight on cash or going to grow organically, you need to rely on open source just from a cost perspective. So the ability to go to MongoDB and get a start there, I think, is crucial. And that is in the ethos of Twitter. We're open by default. All tweets can be seen, so we believe in that. I do appreciate that software companies have to find a way to commercialize, monetize, and make money. But I think deep down we believe in openness. And as an aside, I worked at Cisco for many years. Amazing company, great products, but now you're seeing open source creep into that world, which is software-defined networking, and the ability of companies to create their own infrastructure, and we'll see how that unfolds on that equipment industry.
Okay, this is related to this topic, but the evolution, the agile, the velocity of the world is really changing, it's exponential. And we are seeing in the market how the startups with 2, 3, 5 people are disrupting the markets, the products, the use cases, giving solutions. Huge companies that you could think, okay, they have billions of dollars, are not able to keep the path and to compete. For example, we see in some of the closed products of very big companies like IBM or Oracle that they are incorporating some of the open source technology, but to incorporate it into the closed product, then they are like 1 year behind the open source, and then they are like always behind. Of course, they cannibalize part of the market or their products, previous products, if they disrupt too much. But in the companies, there are a lot of questions about why. How is it possible that 2, 3, or a pizza team is disrupting with new products against Goliaths like IBM, Oracle, and all the big ones. Why do you think this is happening? And is it going to happen more in the future? What's your opinion about this?
I mean, from our community, I feel like it's going to happen more. It's going to happen more. It's just obvious what you're seeing. Companies in the last 10 years of their valuations and their adoption, like you showed the dragons, it's pretty obvious that more are coming. Now, if I'm a big enterprise, you do also have an edge, okay? You have the infrastructure, the adoption, the framework to compete. I think the key here is both sides will benefit from this wave. The enterprises will benefit and the startups will benefit. And it creates more of a level playing field. But if I'm an enterprise, I'm going to go hire the smartest developers I can and invest in their careers. Because if I have smart developers, they're going to help me compete. And that's why you're seeing these big companies, these big banks still keep the market share because they're bringing in developers. They have armies of smart developers who are building the next wave of applications. On the flip side, you have smaller companies that are becoming dragons, but those companies also have that ability to innovate with less infrastructure. So one thing that we did at Mongo is we have our enterprise product that's designed for the enterprises, our open source free product for those 3-person companies. We've developed a cloud offering, which is a managed service where either side can use it to innovate without having to have good MongoDB skills to date. So I think it benefits both sides. But if you're a CIO, you do want to hire and invest in very, very smart developers, which I think is good for this room and good for Spain.
Yep.
I would have said that, but you stole my thunder. Sorry. Thank you for that. So my personal feeling is exactly that. And I also heard this statistic that 1 out of 15 companies are the ones who go on to become someone. So rest 14 do try something, they put it out there, nothing works, fine. They move on to something else. And that's where the open source world is good. You don't have to spend millions and millions of dollars creating a product and only to see it fail. You create something, you go submit it, you wait for it to be heard or picked up and done something with. If not, you move on to the next one. You improve it or you go create something new. Big companies are publicly listed. They have shareholder pressures. They have customer commitments. They have their money locked up somewhere. It's not easy for them to be so agile and innovative because of multiple issues. And it's a simple physics problem. I mean, you can actually pick a small stone and throw it as far as you want to, but if it is a huge rock, you will have to have a pulley and lever to move it down the hill or up the hill. And it's for good reasons, because if it is a small developer who screwed up a small software piece of a code, no harm done, because 1 or 2 customers would find that error and be fine with it. Or they would go back and tell them to correct that. But if a huge company makes a mistake, it's bad in many, many, many ways. And that's why I think these major companies are going with the safer approach of buy versus build. Many of these companies are waiting for things to germinate, become something, and then they would go buy it and integrate it, and it's easier for them. Having said that, the democratization of the technology, the solutions, the toolkit, everything is happening at a quicker pace, and innovation is definitely good for everyone. But it's the trade-offs, and sometimes people decide to make the trade-off to caution versus be the Google and have its own moonshot.
Okay.
I just realized I forgot the original question, but I think it was around innovation in startups and getting going, if that's right?
Yes, and how the big companies like IBM, the Goliaths, are competing with that, or if they can.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the barriers to entry for young businesses has never been lower in terms of connectivity access, AWS and Google Cloud. So, you can get up, you think about the infrastructure and the cost you needed to buy a physical kit and put it in a closet. Now 1, 2, 3 people can go off and actually create something meaningful in mere months. So that's amazing. The stats don't always look good. 1 in 10 or whatever it is live past 2 years. But that fail fast culture clearly is there now, and I think that's probably the thing I would say to larger brands that are incumbent is simply that there's someone out there just chipping away at the core of what you do. Yeah, you may be a bank with 10,000 locations, and you may say, well, how are they going to duplicate that? Well, they're not, because maybe in the future it would be silly to go to a bank at all. I mean, that's already starting to happen. So yeah, I think that's one of the things you're seeing now is just the ability, the ease with which you can start businesses and challenge people. It's never been cheaper or quicker. You can attack those guys in one little niche that they do, and then expand that. I think Europe's problem, quite frankly, is simply one of fragmentation. I see great startups that have great technology, but it's hard for me to imagine with the resources they have that they can escape their home market. And that has to do with issues of culture and language. If you have a great tech in Spain, you're probably going to need somebody in the UK and selling into that market at some point. The same is true of Germany and whatnot. And that's one of the reasons why I think you see the US, it's one socioeconomic unit. Startups can gain more traction and get more funding quicker, and get that kind of escape velocity, whereas great tech in Europe sometimes struggles to escape their home market.
Okay, then the next and last question, because Ruben is going to kill me, is buying or developing? What is the answer? I mean, especially for when you have a problem in your company, most of the companies, as I explained here, the people, the big banks, the telecom companies, they have some very, very old technology around, with Host or AS400 or very old systems with Oracle or whatever, and they want to replace them. Then to replace them using the open source technologies or the new products, they have basically 2 options: to develop using these open source new technologies and trying to be very innovative and in the state of the art, or to buy a product. Especially here I am talking about 2 or 3 people were asking me, should I buy a vertical SAP solution for my market, or should I develop using these new technologies? What is your answer to this?
In the dating world, it's recommended that you actually go on 3 dates before you propose to someone. My recommendation would be that first understand what the problem you're going to solve, and is the existing product in the market good enough to solve that problem? Because it happens a lot. Trust me, that question comes up everywhere whenever someone tries to do something new. Everyone wants to develop something in-house, and they assume that they can create the next Hive, for example, and create a multi-billion licensing thing. Not everyone has that team who can create Hive. Not everyone has the resource to create a Hive and to socialize that, or to create that, to test that, to manage that scale. I would say that before making this decision, it's good to take a step back, look at not at the initial purchase cost, but initial cost of development plus migration plus training plus the time to adopt and sell in the market if that's the eventual goal. And when you add up all these,
I was here more focusing for internal use. I mean, for not to sell, but to use it internally.
That And that's the other thing, the evolution of the product. I mean, the moment you build something, your needs evolve. The person who asked for it, their needs would have changed, or something would have happened. You would need advanced features. Can you catch up? Can you catch up to the industry standard? That's the last piece of the cost. How fast can you run before you actually catch up to it? So I mean, there is no definite answer to this, build or buy. It's more of the thought process, the rigor that you go through when you plan this migration, and you eventually take a call if things all line up.
Yeah, I would add to, and so I think both of us are probably in the same boat here, where, like, for example, at MongoDB, I look after system integrators and OEM partners. So I'm trying not to get in trouble by answering this. The OEM partners are the ones embedding MongoDB. So I want everyone to buy their products because they have MongoDB embedded. The system integrators are helping the customers develop their own solutions organically. And he's right. In the end, first look at the products. If you're going to buy, make sure the product is built on technologies that are flexible, scalable, secure, and can be upgraded quickly and adapted. Okay? So from Mongo's perspective, we partner with Sitecore, Adobe, Cisco, Splunk. They all have Mongo embedded, right? So we feel good about these products because they're going to be agile because they have a good database. The system integrators are going to help the customers develop things on their own, and they're going to provide that expertise to be your partner so that you can then keep this thing up to date. Because developers leave companies too. They can leave. And then who's going to look after this software after they leave? So I think there is no right answer, but if you're going to go down the build it track, can you sustain it? If you're going to go on the buy it track, make sure that it's built on technologies that are going to be easy to upgrade, and there's going to be innovation over there. Pretty good.
I was thinking about, Oscar, to your slide where you had the third generation data. I think one thing that was, well, it may have been on there, may not, but it's the fact that I think those sorts of companies focus on core competencies, things that give them a competitive advantage, and they outsource everything else. So it's a tough thing in the SaaS world. There's SaaS tools that have popped up to serve any corporate enterprise need, right? So you could end up with a company that have 100 different enterprise tools, and some do have that many. Yep. And you could say, well, wouldn't it be better if we just did this all ourselves or controlled it or owned it? But the challenge is, do you want to maintain all that? Do you really think that you understand what makes a best-of-breed marketing or customer care tool? Do you want to maintain that? What if the 3 people who built it leave? So those are some of the issues, or hit by a bus. Those are some of the issues that I think that you have. And so I mean, I don't have a particularly strong view on this other than to say that I think it's a bit short-sighted when companies kind of go down the build it all in-house. That usually stems from the fact that they have too many resources sitting around with nothing to do, and they want to get value out of that, quite frankly, as opposed to being focused on areas that really drive the business forward, whatever that may be.
Just to add to that, that is a big problem. Sometimes we underestimate the scope of that problem. The documentation and the operations and the program management around something that you developed in-house. People who actually create this as their source of whatever bread and butter have the vested stake in doing that and managing that. It's not trivial because, like you said, it happens a lot. In shadow IT, someone creates something and they either forget to comment it or they forget to add context, and the next person who comes in doesn't know what to do with it. Let's assume that you have a huge, data access program written in-house, and somebody, who actually was doing it had quit a year ago. How would you manage that?
I mean, there's probably more value in letting the business choose tools that they like and feel comfortable with, and then letting the smart people kind of tie those things together. Like you guys, I wasn't paid to say that, but let people come in that can tie these things together. So.
No, I agree about that, and thank you for your answers, because this is a big topic for most of the people and the companies, I think, worldwide. So I think we don't have more time.
Like 2 minutes.
The next questions were about DevOps and how to keep all the operations, but we will leave it for next year.
Very good. I actually have a question for you, Stephen ahead of the audience. So we do have a brain map on Big Data Spain where you can like tap a button and then you are given a choice of 4 areas of big data that basically consist in your area of interest for the next 12 months. So if you come to Big Data Spain, you see the brain map and you are confronted with a question. What are you going to work in? The 4 areas are databases, analytics and machine learning, or AI, stream processing real time, cloud, and IaaS. So out of those 4 areas, we have had like more than 300 interactions so far. The winning area has been analytics and machine learning. So basically, more than one third of the people here today would like be spending time or interest in analytics and machine learning. Now imagine that you were like, for you, Oscar, maybe it's like a easy question, but imagine that you become an accidental business angel. Some startup come up to you, 3 founders, ask you a question here. We have 5 specialists specializing developers, architects, and data scientists. We have founded this startup. We have $2 million in the bank. Which area would you invest in? The 4 areas is not a good answer. So if you were to advise them, out of those 4 areas, large topics of big data, what would you advise them? How would they make a product, hit the market? What would you tell them? Can I start with you, Joe, maybe?
Well, I think they are the ones to answer. Of course, don't focus in your specialty. Don't say databases. No, sorry.
Just buy databases. Don't make your
buy
own.
and use it. Yeah.
Oh, do I have to go first? Okay. Well, I was going to choose my own areas. That's what I know the best. I think there was a lot there. I guess if I was advising or looking to invest, I mean, I think it comes down to what is the kind of classic VC stuff. What is the area of focus? What is their competency? Tell me about the team itself. I'm always very interested to know the team behind things. Where is their areas of interest in education and experience? It'd be crazy to say I'm any kind of AI expert or NLP or machine learning. All those things sort of flow together. But I guess I'd want to understand what fundamentally is the application they're going to try to address. What is the problem they will solve? A quick one, Twitter acquired a company, Magic Pony, which does some amazing stuff in artificial intelligence. We're going to use it to help send video down low bandwidth and recreate video in countries where there's this low bandwidth. So that's just one application for AI among many. So what is the focus of your thing? That's some of the questions I would ask.
What were the 4 choices? AI, machine learning, analytics, cloud, system?
So that's right. So databases, 70 people are going to be focusing in databases. More than 100 people, analytics and machine learning, like a broad subject, right? 60-something stream processing real time. And finally, cloud and platforms.
I am usually a long game guy. And if I see 5 years into the future, AI is going to be a huge driver of things that happen. And to prepare for that, we need to have good database, good cloud, and whatever the third one was.
Real-time stream processing.
Stream processing, yeah, stream processing, and finally the analytics and machine learning. And if I have to invest the dollar today, I would rather invest on database. I mean, I would rather invest between cloud and stream, because that's something that's going to fundamentally determine how well the AI is going to be then. Everyone is on the hype cycle today. Everyone is building something in AI and machine learning, but we don't know how things would pan out then. We might as well build something that is so good and reliable that whenever these fights are over and the winner comes in, they have no choice but to come to us with whatever we have here.
Okay. Alan?
Yeah, I agree. So the survey, you have some that are more building blocks areas, and then the AI and IoT are kind of more use case based. But I do advise some VC-backed companies. Obviously, MongoDB is backed by Sequoia and a number of other great investors. If you just look at trends in the market and follow how those trends are evolving, like I think, Oscar, you showed the connected car trend.
Yep.
I mean, connected car, that market is just unbelievable opportunity. Anyone who's driving a latest car, I bought a car last year, I think early this year, and it has so many tools to keep me safe. If I veer off the lane, I get a beep, right? If I don't have my hands on the handle, both hands on the steering wheel, it gives me a beep. And then one day, you know, maybe these cars like Uber will drive these cars autonomously, or these trucks. So I think that is a great AI/IoT type use case for connected car. But then investing in databases, cloud, analytics, all our components, because you can't build that without those things. Right. So, you know, if I'm an investor, where's the market going? Do you have something that is different than your competitors? And then the team. The team, I think, is probably just as important as the technology itself. Can this team go through the grind of taking a company, to Joe's point, that can go worldwide, that can execute, that can potentially sustain this if the developers leave? That is one area that every investor looks in.
I am going to cheat here a little bit. So my answer would be, if you want to be a very successful startup, you have to make something like to a partnership with Twitter to have data trading and data very fast coming, apply machine learning there, store it in MongoDB to do the Lambda architecture and to have more intelligence there, and then do a partnership with Visa to provide excellent and the volume of customers they have. And that would be a really successful startup.
Makes sense.